One must be committed. We all have dreams. We all want to believe deep down in our souls that we have a special gift, that we can make a difference, that we can touch others in a special way, and that we can somehow make the world a better place. What's one of your aspirations? Maybe it's a dream you've forgotten or have begun to relinquish. If that vision were alive today, what would your life be like? Would you have more inspiration? Take a moment right now and just dream. Think about what would you really want for your life if you could have it any way you wanted it. It's not what we do once in a while that counts, but our consistent actions are what make the real difference. And by the way, what is the father of all action? What ultimately determines who we become and where we go in our lives? The answer is our decisions. You see, it's in the moments of decision that our destiny is truly shaped. More than anything else, I believe our decisions, not the conditions of our lives, determine our ultimate destiny. Do something you've been putting off. Master a new skill. Treat people with a newfound love or respect or compassion. Call someone you haven't spoken to in years. And just know something. Know that all decisions have consequences for your life. Even making no decision at all is a decision in its own way. What decisions have you made or failed to make in the past that have powerfully influenced your life even today? And what new decision could you make right now? We all have goals, whether we know it or not. No matter what they are, they have a profound effect on our lives. Yet some of our goals, such as I need to pay my lousy bills, certainly lack inspiration. They're not going to give you anything in your life. They're going to pull you down. So the secret of unleashing your true power is to set goals that are exciting enough that they truly inspire your creativity and they ignite your passion. So right now, consciously choose your goals. Brainstorm everything worth pursuing in your life. Then pick a single goal that excites you the most, something that will get you up early and keep you up late, and assign a deadline for achieving it. And then think about why you must absolutely attain it by that date. Is it grand enough to challenge you, to push you beyond your limits, to uncover your true potential? Find one that does that to you. Never leave the sight of a goal without first taking some form of positive action towards its attainment. Right now, take a moment to define the first steps you must take to achieve your goal. In other words, you can't just write down a goal and say, now I'm going to get it. The question is, what are you going to do? What can you do today to move yourself forward? Even the smallest step, a phone call, a commitment, sketching out an initial plan will put you closer to your goal. Then develop a list of simple things you can do every day for the next 10 days. These 10 consecutive days of action will create a chain of habits, and they'll begin to build for you that force we all need to succeed, unstoppable momentum. This is what ensures long-term success. So begin creating that momentum. If your first attempt at achieving your goals seems futile, should you move on and do something else? Absolutely not. Persistence overshadows even talent as the most valuable resource in shaping the quality of people's lives. After all, no one ever achieved a goal by being interested in its achievement. One must be committed. Isn't it possible that some of the short-term, quote, failures may actually have provided you with the necessary insights or distinctions to create an even greater success in your future? I can tell you from personal experience that this is true. All people who succeed, consciously or unconsciously, utilize the same formula for success. They use 4 simple steps to achieve whatever they desire. First, you must decide what you want, and you must be precise. Remember that clarity is power. Second, you've got to take massive action, because desire by itself is not enough. Thirdly, you've got to notice what's working and what's not working. You don't want to continue to expend energy on an approach that's worthless just because it's part of your plan. And step 4, when you notice it's not working, you've got to change your approach until you achieve what you want. Flexibility gives you the power to create a brand new approach and a brand new result for your life, and this can be done in a moment, the moment you're willing to be flexible. You have to have something to get you out of bed. I can't do anything in bed anyway. The most important thing is to have a point, a direction, something you're headed for. Get what you want, you must discover what's preventing you from taking action. Think of something you avoided doing until the last minute. Let's take your taxes, for example. Isn't it true that you put it off simply to avoid the pain of the moment, only to experience even greater pain later on? But even though you put it off, and very often people do this by saying, I should do this, I should do that, I should follow through. They don't actually change, they just what I call should all over themselves. But what usually happens around April 14th is a change. Suddenly our procrastination disappears because we quickly change what we believe will bring us either pain or pleasure. Suddenly not taking action is much more painful than just doing it. How can you use this understanding to change your life? In the future, instead of asking, how can I avoid doing this painful task, or why do I have to do this, use some leverage on yourself. Ask, if I don't take action now, what will this ultimately cost me? See, pain can be your friend if you really use it effectively. Each of us has this power of choice. The secret of success is learning how to use pain and how to use pleasure to your advantage. Is there an area of your life in which you feel unnecessary pain? Are you perhaps reacting rather than deliberately choosing? How could you change your focus or the way you interpret something and turn a seemingly painful event into a pleasurable opportunity to either learn or grow or help another person? What you link pain to and what you link pleasure to shapes your destiny. That's a pretty big statement to make, but I think you'll find it's true. You see, each of us has learned and adopted a unique pattern of behaviors to get ourselves out of pain in life and into pleasure. Some people do this by drinking alcohol, or by smoking, or by overeating, or by verbally abusing other people. Others do it by exercising, conversing, learning, helping others, or making a difference in some way. What are some of your pain-avoiding, or for that matter, pleasure-inducing patterns? How have these things shaped your life up until now? When you want to feel better, do you watch TV, light a cigarette, go to sleep? What are some of the more positive ways in which you could move from pain towards pleasure and create patterns that really improve your life starting today? Often when we see greatness in others, we assume that they're just more fortunate or they're blessed with some kind of special gift. In reality, they've utilized a greater depth of their human resources simply because failing to be, do, and share their all would be the ultimate pain for them. If you look at the selfless life of someone like Mother Teresa, for example, you'll find that she's driven because she clearly associated other people being in pain meant she was in pain. This drives her to help almost anyone who suffers anywhere in the world. Her ultimate pleasure is alleviating their pain. Mixed emotions are behind most patterns of self-sabotage, and they certainly limit the level of enjoyment and the success that one can experience in life. For example, people often will say, I'd like to earn more money. Certainly these people have the ingenuity and the intelligence to figure out how to accomplish this task, so what stops them? What stops them is mixed emotions, or another word for it is mixed associations. They may believe that amassing wealth would give them more freedom or security or the ability to help those they love. But simultaneously, they may also associating having, quote, excess money as being wasteful or shallow or manipulative or non-spiritual. If you've ever found yourself taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back, invariably it's because you have mixed associations. You associate achieving your goals to both pain and to pleasure. You ever felt that no matter what you did, you'd get pain for it? For example, sometimes people feel that if they stay in a relationship, they'll be miserable. But if they leave, on the other hand, they'll be alone and even more miserable. As a result, they do nothing except feel miserable. Rather than feeling trapped, use your pain as your strongest ally. Think about what you've experienced in the past and what you're experiencing in the present, and actually allow yourself to feel the pain with such emotional intensity that it gives you leverage to finally do something about it. I call this reaching emotional threshold. Instead of passively waiting that motivates you to make a decision and take some action and make your life better starting right now, today. One of my definitions of success is to live your life in a way that causes you to consistently feel an immense amount of pleasure and very little pain, but while simultaneously having a lifestyle that positively affects the people around you, that causes the people around you to consistently feel more pleasure and less pain. To do this, we must grow and we must contribute. Changing focus is only one way to change your emotional state. An even quicker way, a more powerful way, is to change the way you use your physical body, what we call your physiology. For example, when most people don't like how they feel, what do? They drink alcohol, they go eat, they smoke, they sleep, they use some drug, or they use some positive strategies like dancing or singing or exercising or making love or reading. Every emotion you feel has a specific physiology attached to it. For example, when people are depressed, what's their posture like? Their shoulders are drooping, right? Where's their head? Hanging down. What's their breathing like, full or shallow? You know the answer, it's shallow. Their facial expression, is it up and tight or slack? Of course it's slack. Conversely, when people say they're feeling really happy and up, what happens to their body? You and I both know personally, our shoulders rise, our heads lift, our breathing is full. Now here's the secret. You and I can consciously command these changes in our physiology and immediately produce the emotional states we desire. All you have to do is move differently. If I clap my hands like this, if I snap my fingers like this, if I talk more rapidly like this, there's going to be a different energy level than if I start talking like this and moving like this. Physiology is everything. Change the pace of your movement, change the intensity of your movement, and you change your life. Age is more a matter of focus and physiology than it really is chronology. Many people have lived many years but still have a skip in their walk and flexibility in their thought. A simple example of this is found on a rainy day. What does an old person, quote unquote, do when there's a puddle in front of their path? Well, of course, they walk around it, but they don't just do that, they complain about it the whole time. On the other hand, what does a child do? Or those that are still young at heart? They might jump right in, laugh, splash around, or even have a good time. Listen, I want to remind you what you already know. You got to take time to enjoy life's puddles. You got to live with a spring in your step, a smile on your face. You got to make cheerfulness and outrageousness and playfulness new priorities for your life. You're alive. You can feel good for no reason at all. You need no excuse to feel good. So do it starting right now. Keep focusing on what you fear. That's exactly where you'll end up. When you become a professional racer, the thing you learn is that we all unconsciously steer in the direction of our focus. So if you're staring at that wall, that's exactly where you're going to go. What you have to be willing to do is have faith. You've got to turn your head and look in the direction you want, the direction of the open track, even though you're still heading towards the wall. But you know what happens in the last moment? The tires catch and you turn in the direction you want to go. That's only if you maintain your focus on what you want. In life, most people focus on what they don't want instead of what they do. If you'll resist your fear and have some faith and discipline your focus, your actions will naturally take you in the direction you want to go. Release your fears and focus right now on what do you truly desire and what do you truly deserve. What is the force that determines what we try or fail to try to accomplish in our lives? It's our beliefs. Beliefs about what we're capable of, about what's possible or what's impossible, about who we are as people. In the Haitian cultures, a person's belief is the deadly power of the witch doctor, quote, pointing the bone. This can indeed cause death. But the real killer is simply the sense of certainty, the belief that the witch doctor has total power of our body. And when we have that level of certainty, our body responds accordingly. In your own life, do you have a set of negative expectations? What effects have they had on your life, if you have any? What are some of the most empowering beliefs, by contrast, that have really positively shaped your life? What new positive expectations could you set yourself up with right now that could change the way you think, the way you feel, the decisions you make, and what you're willing to try day to day? For thousands of years, it was known that no human being could run a 4-minute mile. It was physically impossible. Yet Roger Bannister shattered this belief when he ran a 3:59 mile. Now, how did he do it? He started by practicing in his mind's eye. He repeatedly visualized his triumph so intensely that his emotional certainty gave him an unquestioned command to his nervous system, and he finally achieved physically the results that he had matched in his mental picture. Following in Bannister's stride and believing that they too could do it, within 1 year, several other people duplicated this feat when no one had done it in thousands of years. What barrier do you need to burst through? What's your 4-minute mile? What do you perceive as being impossible today that if you were certain it was possible, you'd find a way to achieve it? What's a belief that if you changed it, it would change not only your life, but the lives of those around you as well? Beliefs have the power to create and the power to destroy. Because of their amazing influence on our lives, we must understand 3 challenges. Number 1, most of us do not consciously decide what we're going to believe. We just kind of pick up our beliefs along the way, and yet they shape how we think, how we feel, and what we do every moment of our lives. Number 2, often our beliefs are based on misinterpretations of past events. And number 3, once we adopt a belief, we tend to consider it gospel. We look for ways to back it up, to reinforce it, to be even more certain about it. And we forget that it's only one perspective that we've adopted some time ago. Do you have any beliefs that you take for granted to be true? What are some of the contrary beliefs that might also be true? How would your life be different if you really adopted the opposite view? We can turn any idea into a belief if we just provide enough reference experiences to support it. Which one of these statements is true, for example? People are basically honest and decent if you give them half a chance they want to help you, or people are dishonest. They only look out for themselves and they'll rip you off if you give them half a chance. Well, you might say they're both true, but what's really true is what you're certain about, what you have developed as a belief. If you wanted to, don't you have enough experiences, enough what we call references to back up the belief that people are basically rotten? Haven't you read enough about it, heard enough about it, or experienced enough to back that belief up? Put legs underneath that table of certainty, if you will? If you focused on other experiences, couldn't you just as easily remember experiences that would make you feel certain that people are honest, that they're caring, that they'll go out of the way to help you if you care about them? Which one of these beliefs is really true? Whichever belief you construct to be true within yourself. Remember, we can always find a way to back up any belief, so choose your beliefs well. Beliefs drive all of our behaviors. While some affect only one aspect of our lives, others are much more pervasive. For example, a specific belief like John is dishonest would certainly influence your interactions with John. But believing people are dishonest would have ramifications far beyond this single relationship. I call these types of beliefs global beliefs. Global beliefs like this one are usually based on some generalization made a long time ago under certain extreme circumstances. We may have completely forgotten the original circumstance in which the belief came up, and yet unconsciously we still allow it to guide our decision making. The effect these beliefs can have on our lives is unlimited, but this does not have to be negative. A change in one global belief can change every aspect of your life for the better. There are 3 different levels of certainty. One we call opinions, the second one we call beliefs, and the third we call convictions. Opinions can be shifted easily, as they're based on transitory perceptions. Beliefs, however, are much stronger because they're usually based on an experience someone has actually had, or one they have a lot of emotion attached to, although it can be based on other things they've heard from other people. It is possible to destabilize this person's certainty by getting them to question what they used to believe and inducing a bit of doubt. A conviction, on the other hand, is incredibly intense and very difficult to change because it's usually buttressed by such high emotional intensity that the person holding it not only feels certain about this, but they can actually become enraged or blinded to any rational discussion if that conviction is ever questioned by another person. Convictions can be incredibly empowering or unbelievably destructive. All personal breakthroughs begin with a change in beliefs. How do you replace a limiting belief? Well, the most effective way is to destabilize your old belief. In other words, to shake your certainty by inducing doubt, by beginning to question that old belief. So you need to remember that your brain is always trying to move you away from pain. So think about all the negative consequences that this belief has caused. Ask yourself, as I consider it, what's actually silly, stupid, or ridiculous about this belief? And really make yourself answer that question. Or ask, what has this belief already cost me in my life? How has it limited me in the past? And I'm not willing to let this happen anymore. Or thirdly, ask, what could it cost me in the future if I don't change this belief right now? Answering these types of questions could help you associate painful feelings to this old, undesired belief and provide you with the leverage and the opportunity to replace it with a new, empowering belief. The power of expectation in enhancing performance is well documented, and it's been called the Pygmalion effect. In one study, teachers were told that certain students in their classes were gifted and needed to be constantly challenged in order to excel. The teachers, of course, complied, and not surprisingly, these same students became top achievers. However, unbeknownst to them all, the students that had been identified as gifted hadn't actually demonstrated higher intelligence prior to the study. Some, in fact, had previously been labeled poor students. What made the difference? The newfound sense of certainty that they were superior was instilled by a teacher's, quote, false belief about them. Can you see the importance of your beliefs about yourself and about other people? What's the primary difference between people who are successful and those who aren't? Quite simply, successful people are those who have asked better questions, and as a result, they've gotten better answers. When the automobile was in its infancy, hundreds of people tinkered with building them, but Henry Ford stood apart by asking, how can I mass produce such a machine? Millions in Eastern Europe chafed under the iron yoke of communism, but Lech Walesa had the courage to ask, how can I raise the standard of living for all working men and women? What could I do today to make something happen? If you were to let your imagination run wild, where might your questions really lead you? Quality questions create a quality life. Businesses succeed when their decision makers ask the right questions about product lines or markets or strategic planning. Relationships tend to flourish when people ask the right questions about where potential conflicts exist and how to support each other rather than how to tear each other down. The questions you ask yourself consistently will create either enervation or enjoyment, indignation or inspiration, misery or magic. So you want to ask yourself questions that will uplift your spirit and push you along the path of human excellence. If you've repeatedly tried and, let's say, failed to lose weight, could it be that you're asking yourself the wrong questions? Questions like, what will fill me up? Or what's the sweetest, richest food I can get away with today? What if you were to ask instead, what will really nourish me? What light, delicious dish could I eat that would give me some energy right now? Will this cleanse me if I eat this, or will this clog me? And if you're tempted to binge, if I eat this, what will I have to give up in order to still achieve my goals? Is it worth it? Questions immediately change what we're focusing on and therefore how we feel. Don't you have treasured moments in your life that if you focused on them again, you'd immediately feel wonderful right now? Perhaps it was a day when you moved out on your own, the birth of your first child, or a conversation with a friend that really helped you or touched you, or gave you confidence to really shoot for the stars. Questions such as, what am I grateful for? Or what could I be grateful for right now? What's wonderful in my life right now? If we really think about these and really entertain these questions, they can guide us to remembering these moments, allowing us not only to feel good about our lives, but also to contribute more to those around us. How can you immediately improve your life? By discovering and modeling the habitual questions of people you respect. See, if you find someone who's extremely happy, I can guarantee you there's a reason. And that reason is this person focuses relentlessly on what makes them happy, and they continually ask questions about how to be even happier. People who do well financially ask different questions as they look at an investment than people who produce meager rewards. So a new level of success in any area of your life is as close as a new question, a question you can model from someone who's already experienced that which you desire. Remember, ask and you shall receive. One of the main ingredients of success is the openness to receive answers. See, back when Walt Disney was creating his Magic Kingdom, he had a unique way of requesting input. He designated an entire wall to display all the stages of a project, and everyone in the organization was invited to post their answers to the question, how can we improve this? Thus, Disney gained access to the combined resources of a creative army, producing results that were commensurate with that level of quality input. See, you don't have to be at the helm of a leading organization to benefit from this tool. How could you cast your focus in new directions? What people do you interact with daily that could provide you with a wealth of resources if you only asked? The answers we receive depend upon the questions we're willing to ask. See, it's all a matter of discovering the particular question that'll help you access a more resourceful state of mind and emotion. For example, if learning and progress are important to you, then a question such as, how can I use this situation to do even better in the future, will be most effective in breaking any negative emotional pattern because you want to grow so much. With especially difficult upsets, you might have to ask, 10 years from now, will this really even matter? This often will break your pattern. To deal with relationship upsets, ask questions such as, what else could be affecting this person right now? And how could I help them? This is a quick way to resolve your differences and begin to express your compassion. Simple question that can make a huge difference was suggested to me by Leo Buscaglia. Many people know him as the Love Doctor. You see, when Leo was young, his father asked him every night, Leo, what have you learned today? Leo knew he better have an answer, and a good one. In fact, if he hadn't learned anything really interesting in school that day, he'd scurry for the encyclopedia. Decades later, Leo still won't go to bed until he's learned something new and valuable for the day. How could your life or your children's lives be immeasurably enhanced by adding this question or one like it to your daily routine? You see, all day long you're asking questions. Why not ask a better one? In what ways could you make this process as fundamental as eating or sleeping? I've always prided myself on my ability to produce lasting changes in almost anyone. But I had a rude awakening one day when a man I'd helped years before to quit smoking approached me. He pulled out a cigarette pack from his pocket and said, "You failed." "What do you mean?" I asked him, curious to really know what had actually happened. He said, "Well, after our session, I didn't smoke for 2.5 years. But then one day I got stressed and I lit up, and I've been smoking ever since. It's all your fault. You didn't program me properly," he said. Well, although his communication was less than elegant, this man gave me an incredible gift. He reminded me that we must take personal responsibility for our change, or it's worthless. No one can, quote, program you. You must condition yourself for change. Any change we make will be only temporary unless we make ourselves and no one else responsible for our lasting change. Specifically, we must adopt 3 core beliefs for lasting change. They are, number 1, it must change. Believing that we should change something is not enough. Number 2, I must change it. Others may coach me, but I'm ultimately responsible. And number 3, I can change it. Since I created what I'm currently experiencing, then I can change whatever I'm experiencing. Nothing changes until we change the sensations that we link to an experience in our nervous system. For example, as long as cigarettes give you a feeling of pleasure, you're going to be drawn to them. It's only when you associate cigarettes with disgust, ashtray mouth, and death that lasting change tends to occur. Though we'd like to deny it, what usually drives our behavior is gut-level reactions, not intellectual calculation. You see, you may understand that chocolate is unhealthy, yet do you still eat it? Why? Because you're not driven so much by what you intellectually know, but instead by what you've learned to link pain and pleasure to in your nervous system. It's our neuroassociations, that is, the associations we've established in our nervous system, that determine what we'll actually do. Why don't most attempts at breaking a habit work? because we address the symptom of the problem by dieting or going cold turkey or cutting up their credit cards. But if we don't eliminate its cause, it's going to resurface. The technology I've developed is called Neuro-Associative Conditioning, or NAC, the knack of change. It's a simple yet powerful 6-step strategy for producing lasting changes. And the 6 steps are, number 1, state clearly what you really want. Most people focus on what they don't want, and that's what they actually achieve. Number 2, get leverage on yourself. Make change a must. Step 3, interrupt your old limiting pattern. Break the habit's hold on you. Number 4, create a new empowering alternative to your old pattern. You can't stop a behavior or stop an emotion. You've got to replace it. Number 5, condition it. Reinforce this new pattern until it becomes a positive habit. And finally, 6, test it. Make sure it actually works in the situations where your old habits used to come up. Decide what you really want and determine what's preventing you from having it right now. Remember that we get whatever we focus on. So rather than dwelling on what you don't want, clearly articulate what you do want. For example, instead of making your goal to stop smoking, decide what you want to do to be more healthy, vibrant, alive than ever before in your life. The more specific you are, the more power you'll have to rapidly achieve what you want. Once you've decided what you want, identify any obstacles you may face, such as the anticipated pain that might occur as the result of changing. What do you really desire, and what's preventing you from having it now? Get leverage. Associate massive pain to not changing now and immense pleasure to immediately making this change. Ask yourself, what will this behavior or emotion cost me if I don't change it? What will I miss out in my life if I don't make this shift now? What is the old behavior already costing me mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, and spiritually? How does this negatively affect my career or loved ones? Then vividly imagine and experience the pleasurable effects of making this change now. Ask yourself, when I do change, how will that make me feel about myself? What kind of momentum will I create by making this change? How will my family and friends feel? Will they be proud of me? How happy will I be? Don't I deserve these benefits right now? Interrupt the limiting pattern. Have you ever seen a fly trapped in a room, desperately seeking an exit? It smacks itself repeatedly against the nearest window over and over again. Have you ever noticed people doing something a lot like this? They may have plenty of motivation, but if they keep doing what doesn't work, they're never going to achieve their goal. It's like the spouse or parent who constantly nags, yet to no avail, or even to contrary results. Interrupt any limiting pattern you find by doing something unexpected immediately. If, for example, you nag, catch yourself mid-sentence, drop to your knees, and flash a smile. And then walk over and hug them, and then tell them how much you love them. Create a new pattern of either thinking, feeling, or behaving. You must first interrupt the old pattern. The reason it's often difficult to change a pattern, whether it be an emotional pattern or a behavioral one, is that it's literally wired into you. One researcher proved this by moving a monkey's finger back and forth and monitoring the resulting connections between nerve cells in the brain as these movements were occurring. With repeated movement, he noted that the thread of connection strengthened, and after moving the animal's finger hundreds of times, they bound together into an irresistible pathway. Now, quote, wired for this behavior, the monkey continued to flex his fingers of his own accord even after the conditioning stopped. Many of us, through overuse, have literally trained ourselves to fly off the handle, or to worry ourselves sick, or to feel insecure, or to abuse alcohol or food. What positive reflexes could you strengthen through repetition in your body and in your emotions? Create a new, empowering alternative. A study of reformed drug abusers found there were different relapse rates for different individuals. Those who were forced externally to give up their drug abuse usually resumed it immediately upon being released from jail. Those who were internally motivated to quit managed to abstain for an average of 2 years. Yet those who replaced their addictions with a new alternative, such as focusing on religion or developing a new work skill, generally went a minimum of 8 years or more without backsliding, and the majority of these people never abused drugs again. Most people's attempts at change are only temporary because they fail to find an alternative way of getting out of pain and into pleasure. Old patterns must be replaced, not just eliminated. So as you look at your own patterns, what's a new alternative that could make you feel good that would be different than what you've done in the past? Condition the new pattern until it is consistent. Do you remember the monkey which through consistent use of its finger literally created a neural connection, that's a nerve connection in the brain, that drove it to continually flex the finger in the future? Well, researchers have proved that if they emotionally excited that animal while training it, the neural connections were strengthened and intensified with fewer repetitions. In other words, if you want to establish a new emotional pattern or a new behavior, then while you're imagining it, you want to put yourself in a peak emotional state. If you do this with music or visualization or excitement, you'll find you can establish a new pattern in a matter of minutes instead of a matter of months, weeks, or years. And remember, as soon as you start to do a new pattern of behavior, you want to immediately reward yourself or someone you're trying to help whenever you use that pattern in the future. A pattern of thinking, feeling, or behaving that is consistently reinforced will eventually become a positive habit. Test it. Use the following to double check that you've taken each of the 5 preceding steps correctly. Number 1, make certain that when you think of your old pattern of feeling or behaving, that you immediately associate intense pain to it. For example, if you smoked before, make sure now you don't like the thought of smoking at all. It doesn't feel good to you. Number 2, be sure that pleasure is fully associated to your new pattern. When you think of your new behavior or the new feeling, do you feel pleasure instead of pain? Number 3, make certain that this new behavior is consistent with how you want to live your life. Is it aligned with your goals, your beliefs, your life's philosophy? Number 4, make sure the benefits of the old pattern have been maintained. For example, if you used to smoke in order to calm yourself or reduce stress, do you have a new alternative way of accomplishing these things that allows you to reduce your stress and feel relaxed immediately? Will the new behavior or feeling still allow you to get the feelings of pleasure that you used to get from the old pattern? And finally, 5, imagine yourself behaving in this new way in the future. In other words, picture something that would have triggered you to indulge in your old behavior and make certain that you automatically now feel like doing the new behavior instead of the old one. Words have the power to start wars or to create peace, to destroy a relationship or to strengthen it. How we feel about anything is shaped by the meaning that we attach to it. The words that you consciously, or for that matter unconsciously, select in order to describe a situation immediately changes what this situation means to you and thus how you feel about it. If you describe an event to yourself as devastating, will you feel different than if you describe it as a bit disappointing? Is there a difference in emotional intensity between calling something a major problem or a minor challenge? What if you share with me a conviction that you have and I tell you you're mistaken? What if I say you're wrong? Worse, what if I choose the words you're lying? Will this affect our interaction? Words have immense power. Years ago, I made a discovery that has really changed my life forever. And it happened when I was in a business meeting with 2 of my associates, and we all received some news that was certain to produce negative consequences for each of us. Yet each of us had a different emotional intensity about the news. What's more, I couldn't help but notice that we all had different ways of describing how we felt about it. I was, quote, angry. One associate around me was absolutely enraged, and the third was merely a bit annoyed. I remember thinking what a stupid word that was. Annoyed. What a dumb word. I've never felt annoyed. Then I thought, interestingly enough, I never feel this emotion, and I never use this word to describe how I feel. I began to wonder, if you adopted a new set of words, Could you transform your emotional patterns? Based on this meeting, I made a 10-day commitment to adopt a stupid, silly word, annoyed, and to use it and utilize it in any situation where I would normally say that something makes me really angry or mad. The results were astonishing. Simply by changing the word I'd habitually used to describe my feelings of upset, I immediately lowered the intensity of my negative feelings. Saying to someone, "This really annoys me," really broke my pattern. Soon I adopted other words such as "you're beginning to peeve me," and you can imagine doing this began to change the way I felt. It made me smile where I used to be upset. I couldn't keep a straight face saying "you're peeving me." When you use a different word for an experience than you normally do, you're attaching a new label to it. It's like pushing a different biochemical button in your body. You don't just change intellectually, you change how you feel emotionally. You got to remember that words are triggering devices. If you doubt this, imagine someone calling you a 4-letter word with intensity. Most likely, this will create a physiological, not just mental change in you. You see, this power to instantly transform human emotions, to either lower or heighten their intensity, I call this transformational vocabulary. Simply adjust your habitual vocabulary. In other words, the words you consistently use to describe your emotions, feelings, or sensations, and you can immediately change how you think, how you feel, and how you live. This is one of the simplest yet most powerful tools for changing virtually anyone's life in an instant. Mark Twain once said, "A powerful agent is the right word." Whenever we come upon one of these intensely right words, the resulting effect is physical as well as spiritual and electrically prompt. What words have the most powerful effect on you? Are they terms of endearment, epithets, exclamations, or exaggerations? What affects you most? Most people's vocabularies consist of only a few thousand words. When you consider that the English language, which is the largest language in the world, contains between 1/2 and 3/4 of a million words, this means that we regularly use only about 2% of our language. What's worse is that most people only have about a dozen words, maybe a maximum of 20, to describe their consistent emotions. And of these, usually half or more are negative. Once we put a label on something, we create a corresponding emotion. Nowhere is this truer than with dis-ease in the body. Studies have shown that diagnosis of cancer and heart disease can often produce panic in patients, which then leads to helplessness and depression that can actually impair the effectiveness of the person's immune system. Conversely, studies have proven that if patients are freed or relieved of the depression produced by these labels, and they clearly understand what their body needs to become healthy, then the immune system often experiences an immediate boost. In an interview I conducted with Norman Cousins, he said, quote, "Words can produce illness, words can kill. Therefore, wise physicians are very careful about the way they communicate. Carefully choose the words you use to describe your health and your life." People with impoverished vocabularies live emotionally impoverished lives. People with rich vocabularies have a multi-hued palette of colors with which to paint their life's experience, not only for others, but for themselves as well. What could you do today to expand your emotional palette? What positive or emotionally uplifting words could you add to your habitual vocabulary so you began to feel more? If you were to consistently use these new words, how much more enjoyable would your life be? Which people do you know who lead extraordinarily happy or passionate lives? What words do they consistently use to describe their life's experience that you might want to model and thereby adopt some of their positive emotional patterns? You and you alone are the source of all your emotions. At any moment, you can create or change any of them. So if that's true, why don't we? For most of us, feeling bad seems natural, but we have to have a reason to feel good. You see, I want to tell you something. You don't need an excuse to allow yourself to feel good. You can just decide to feel good right now simply because you're alive, simply because you want to. You don't have to wait for anything or anyone to feel good. Just put it in your body. Move like you feel good. Act like you feel good. And very quickly you will. Understand that all emotions serve you. Those you once thought of as negative emotions are merely calls to action. For example, if you feel frustrated, and by the way, we'll repeat this later on, what it means is that you believe that things could be better and they're not. This is a call to action telling you there's something you must do to make things better right now. This negative emotion, quote unquote, is actually a gift if you use it effectively. From now on, when you think of what you used to call a negative emotion, think of it as a call to action, an action signal. If you ever feel pain in any situation in your life, it's the result of either the way you're looking at things, in other words, your perception or what you're focusing on, or it's the result of what you're doing. In other words, your current approach or your current actions aren't working. We might call these your procedures. Now, if you don't like the way you're feeling, change one of these two things. Either change your focus or perception, or simply change what you're doing, your procedures, and you'll find an immediate change in your emotions. You see, you can change the way you're interacting with your spouse because you're in control. You can change the way you're communicating with your boss, or just change your perception that all these people have to always agree with your point of view. To gain confidence about your ability to handle a negative emotion, simply remember a time when you felt a similar way and realize that you've successfully handled this emotion before. I don't care if it's depression or frustration or overwhelm. We've all had times when we turned it around. Do you remember a time when you felt depressed and turned it around, or you were frustrated, or you were overwhelmed, yet you refocused and you felt centered? Model your own successful actions from the past. What did you do then that worked? Did you change what you were focusing on? Did you ask yourself a better question? Did you interrupt your pattern by changing your physiology, by going for a walk or exercising and returning in a more balanced state? If you begin to feel this emotion again in the future, use the same strategy you used in the past to turn things around today or anytime in your future. Uncomfortable emotions like boredom, impatience, unease, distress, or mild embarrassment are sending you a nagging message that something's not quite right. Either your perception of the situation is making you uncomfortable and you need to change that, or your current actions are not supporting your goal. So here's the solution. 1, use the skills you learned in Section 2 of this program to immediately change your emotional state by changing either your focus or your physiology. Or 2, clarify how you want to feel now and what you want to accomplish. 3, change or refine your actions. Try a slightly different approach to see if you can immediately change the way you're feeling about a situation, or if you can change the results you're producing. Like all emotions, if the emotions of boredom or impatience or distress or mild embarrassment aren't dealt with, they tend to grow into something much more intense. If we don't deal with situations that are making us uncomfortable, often they grow into fear. The emotions of fear, apprehension, worry, and anxiety are simply a call to action telling you that you need to be more prepared for what's about to occur. The solution? 1, think about the situation you're feeling fearful about and decide what must you do right now to prepare yourself for it, either mentally or physically. 2, figure out what actions you need to take to deal with the situation in the most effective way possible. And then 3, once you've prepared yourself, then stop worrying and mentally see yourself consistently and successfully dealing with the situation until you feel a sense of continued confidence. Action signal of hurt comes from a feeling of loss, and yet the sense of loss is often an illusion. The action signal here is calling us to change our perception or to realize that one of our expectations may have been inappropriate. Here's the solution. 1, realize you may not have actually lost anything. Raised voices do not necessarily mean that someone no longer loves you, for example. Number 2, reevaluate the situation by asking, is it possible that by not having my expectations met, I've actually gained something else? Have I judged the situation too soon or maybe too harshly. 3, as elegantly and appropriately as possible, communicate your feelings to whoever you see as the source. I know you really care about me, but could you clarify for me what really happened here? The action signal of anger, annoyance, resentment, or rage is a powerful emotion. Its source is feelings of hurt that have not been dealt with. This action signal tells us that one of our most important standards or rules has been violated either by ourselves or by someone else. The solution is 1, realize you may have misinterpreted this situation. The person you believe has, quote, broken your rules may not even know they've been broken. They may not even know what your rules are, even though you think you're so clear about them. 2, realize that your rules are not necessarily the, quote, right rules. Sometimes it's pretty hard to do. And then 3, interrupt the anger within yourself by asking yourself a question such as, in the long run, is it true this person really cares about me? Or what can I learn from this? Or will this even matter 20 years from now? How can I communicate the importance of my standards to this person so that we can get along better in the future? The action signal of frustration means that in spite of your current lack of progress, at some level, you believe that something you're doing could be done better, that you could get a better or greater result. This is a call to action telling you to change your approach and you can still achieve what you want. The solution's simple. Be flexible. Realize that your frustration is your friend and begin to brainstorm new ways to still get the result. Number 2, find a role model, someone who's found a way to get what you want and learn from him or her. 3, get fascinated by what you can learn to help you handle this challenge in a way that consumes very little time or energy and actually creates joy for you. The action signal of disappointment is the devastated feeling of being let down based on your belief that something's happened and as a result of it, you're going to miss out on something else forever. This action signal calls you to change your expectations. The solution's simple. 1, figure out what you can learn from this situation and/or change your expectations right now. 2, set a new, even more inspiring goal toward which you can make some immediate progress. This will change your focus and how you feel. 3, realize that you may be judging too soon. Often the things you're disappointed about are only temporary challenges. 4, have some patience. This is not always easy. Reevaluate what you truly want and begin to develop an even more effective plan for achieving that. Cultivate an attitude of positive expectancy about what will happen in the future, regardless of what's occurred in the past. Action signal of guilt tells you that you have violated one of your own highest standards and that you must do something immediately to ensure you correct the situation and keep yourself from ever violating it again. This is how we maintain personal internal integrity. The solution is simple. 1, acknowledge that you violated your own critical standards. Acknowledge this to yourself. 2, absolutely commit to making sure you'll never repeat this behavior again. Mentally and emotionally rehearse how you'll deal with the same situation in the future in a way that is consistent with your highest personal standards. 3, don't wallow in guilt. Now that you've utilized it, get yourself back in line and go for it. Do the right thing. Continually beating yourself up about the past will not help you or anyone else be better in the present and future. The action signal of inadequacy is telling you that you don't believe you currently have the information or the understanding, strategies, or confidence that you really need for the task at hand. It's a call to gather additional resources. The solutions are: 1, maybe you've applied completely unfair criteria for assessing your performance. Ask yourself, is it possible I really do have the ability to deal with this and it's only my perception that's making me feel inadequate? 2, if you decide that you really don't have the skills to deal with the situation, then appreciate your feelings of inadequacy as what they truly are, a call to improve yourself. And finally, 3, find a role model who's effective in this area of life and learn some simple things you can do immediately to become more adequate or more effective in this area of your life? Action signals of overload, overwhelm, grief, depression, and helplessness tend to occur when we think of all the things that have happened to us that we cannot control. You must break this pattern by breaking the situation down into simple bite-sized steps. Here's the solution. 1. Decide which of the many things you're dealing with is absolutely most essential to focus on, and limit your focus to that one task. 2. Prioritize the most important steps for making progress in that area specifically, and thus you'll begin to gain a sense of control. 3. Immediately tackle the first simple item on your list. 4. In dealing with the all-encompassing emotions like grief, focus on what you can control instead of what you can't. Realize that there must be some empowering meaning in it all. Remember, everything in life happens for a reason and a purpose. The action signal of loneliness tells you that you need a connection with people, that you really care about them, and that you love to be with them. It's calling you to reach out and connect. The solution is 1, realize that you can reach out and make a connection immediately. Caring people are everywhere. 2, identify what kind of connection you want with people. Do you want basic friendship? Do you want love? Do you want a sympathetic ear? And then 3, take some immediate action to reach out and connect with someone, and you'll see that this feeling of loneliness will disappear immediately. All communication is either a loving response or a cry for help. If someone comes to you in a state of hurt or anger, and you consistently respond to them with love and warmth, eventually that person's state of mind will change, and his or her intensity will just melt away. Cultivate the emotions of appreciation and gratitude. These are among the most spiritual emotions that we can have, and they enhance our lives more than almost anything I know. Live with an attitude of gratitude. If you really want to grow in your lifetime, learn to be as inquisitive as a child. Cultivate curiosity. Curious people are never bored, and for them, life becomes an unending study and joy. Cultivate the feelings of excitement and passion. These can turn any challenge into a tremendous opportunity, giving us the unbridled power to move our lives forward at a faster tempo than ever before. Ignite your passion by using your physiology. Speak more rapidly, visualize images more quickly, and move your body in the direction that you want to go, and you'll experience this passion immediately. Determination makes the difference between being stuck and being struck with a lightning power of commitment. Merely pushing yourself won't do it. Put yourself in a state of determination, and you'll find yourself taking action immediately. Adopt an attitude of flexibility. If there's one emotion to cultivate, it guarantees success. It's the ability to change your approach quickly. In fact, all action signals are just messages to be more flexible. Throughout your life, there will be situations you won't be able to control. Your ability to be flexible during those situations, to flex your rules, to flex the meaning you're attaching to things, to change your approach, will determine your long-term success or failure. Not to mention the level of your personal joy. Be flexible. Consistently experience confidence, and it will change your life. You see, if you've ever done anything successfully, you can certainly do it again. Plus, with the power of faith, you can be confident about things that you've never been involved with before. How? Simply imagine yourself accomplishing things successfully and feel certain by that imagery now. Don't just wait for these emotions to spontaneously appear someday in some far distant future. Create them now. Cheerfulness enhances your self-esteem, it makes life more fun, and it causes the people around you to feel happier as well. Being cheerful does not mean that you're Pollyanna or that you look at the world through rose-colored glasses and refuse to acknowledge any challenges. It means you're incredibly intelligent, because you know that living in pain will not give you solutions. But if you live your life in a state of pleasure with a sense of positive expectation, a sense of expectation that's so intense that you transmit this positive sense of joy to those people around you, then there's no question you can come up with solutions. You can have the impact that you want on people, and you can meet any challenge that comes your way. Cheerfulness is power. Nurturing your own vitality is critical. If you don't take care of your health, it's more difficult to be able to enjoy your emotions. Contrary to popular belief, sitting still does not preserve energy. The human nervous system needs to move to have energy. As you move, oxygen flows throughout your system, and that physical level of health creates the emotional sense of vitality that you need in order to turn any challenge into an opportunity and in order to enjoy your entire life. The secret to living is giving. There's no richer emotion I know of than the sense of contribution. The mark of a true champion is consistency. After all, who wants to create results just once in a while? Who wants to feel joyous for only a moment or be at peak performance only sporadically? We want to do it consistently. We want to experience all of the emotions that make life worthwhile all the time, not just once in a while. So how do you establish consistency? It's all based on your habits. Knowing what to do is not enough. You must do what you know. Would you buy a new Ferrari only to let it sit in your driveway? Would you purchase the most up-to-date computer only to pack it away in the closet? I'm sure your answer would be a resounding no. By the same token, would you listen to this program and fail to use the powerful tools it contains? Probably not. Every successful person I know has the capacity to remain centered, clear, and powerful in the midst of what I call emotional storms. How do they accomplish this? I've discovered most of these individuals have a fundamental rule. Never spend more than 10% of your time on a problem, and always spend at least 90% of your time on the solution.